The meeting room was quiet as Ambassador Zekthar stood up. His crystal body caught the light from the stars above. His 4 eyes looked at the humans with hate. He spoke slowly so everyone could hear. The Council has made its choice. You humans have 72 hours to leave all the planets we claim. If you stay, we will consider it war. Captain Jake Morrison sat still in his chair. His face showed nothing. Next to him, Lieutenant Amy Brooks tensed up. She wanted to reach for her gun, but there were no weapons allowed here. On his other side, diplomat Helen Carter looked calm, but her hands were shaking. Ambassador Zekthar, Helen said in a steady voice, those planets have been ours for 3 generations. We built cities there. People raised families there. Children were born there. These are our homes. They were your homes, Zekthar said. Our people found these planets thousands of years before your kind even went to space. Our claim is older. You must leave. Jake finally spoke. His voice was hard and cold. You want to force 4 million people to leave their homes because of some old records. That is not law. That is theft. The other aliens in the room started talking among themselves. The bug-like Chirathi clicked their jaws. The gas creatures called Nethians changed colors. The lizard score sat without moving. Captain Morrison, said Counselor Thren. He was one of the water breathers called Delphians. His voice bubbled through his water suit.
Maybe we can find a middle path.
Perhaps shared control or a slow transition. No deals, Zekthar said sharply. The Vraxian Empire has waited long enough. These new species spread everywhere like disease. They take everything they touch. This ends now. Helen stood up slowly. Then let me be very clear, Ambassador. Humanity will not abandon our people. If you want those worlds, you will have to take them by force. So be it, Zekthar replied. A grinding sound came from his translator that might have been laughing. Your species has only been in space for 200 years. The Vraxian Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds over 10,000 years. This will not be a war, Captain Morrison. It will be extermination. Jake stood as well. He looked straight at the alien. You know what your biggest mistake is, Ambassador? You have been in space so long and conquered so many weak species that you forgot what it means to face someone who fights back. Someone who learns. Someone who never quits. Empty words from primitives, Zekthar said. Maybe, Jake said with a cold smile. But you are about to find out just how primitive we can be. The meeting ended badly. The human team left quickly. Within hours, everyone in human space knew. The Vraxian Empire had declared war. They had over 5,000 warships. They had 3 alien allies. Humanity was badly outnumbered. On Earth, in the tall buildings of New Geneva, Fleet Admiral Gregory Hayes called an emergency meeting. Around the table stood the best military minds humanity had. General Linda Hoffman led the Marines. Air Marshal Peter Kane commanded air forces. Admiral Susan Wright ran the Colonial Defense Forces. They have 5 ships for every one of ours, Susan said. Her face was grim. Their ships are bigger. Their shields are stronger. Their weapons are better. Every analysis says this is a war we cannot win. Then we do not fight the war they expect, Gregory replied. He pointed to the star map showing human colonies spread across space. We have always been outnumbered and outgunned. That is when humans are most dangerous. Linda nodded. The Vraxians think this will be like their other conquests. Big fleet, quick battles, easy surrender. They do not understand us at all. Make sure our people know what is at risk, Gregory ordered. Every colony, every ship, every human in the fleet. We are not fighting for territory or resources. We are fighting to survive. And if there is one thing humans know how to do, it is survive. As the meeting ended, orders went out across human space. One message was broadcast on every channel to every human colony and ship. Stand firm. Fight smart. Make them regret every step they take. Humanity will not go quietly. On the bridge of the destroyer EDF Defiance, Lieutenant Commander Kevin Palmer got the message. His crew of 90 people listened in shocked silence. Well, Kevin said after a long pause. He looked at his second in command, Commander Lisa Yang. Looks like we are at war. Lisa checked her screens. She could see the Vraxian fleet already moving. Orders, sir? Kevin smiled grimly. We do what humans do best. We adapt, we improvise, and we make them bleed for every inch. All hands to battle stations. Let us show them what a mistake they made. Across human space, people prepared for the greatest challenge they had ever faced. The Vraxians were about to learn something. On Earth, humans had climbed to the top by hunting. They were not the strongest or fastest, but they never stopped chasing. They never gave up. They kept coming until their prey collapsed. The war had begun. The Vraxians had superior technology and numbers, but humans had something else. They had the refusal to accept defeat. They had creativity born from struggling to survive on a dangerous planet. They had the memory of every underdog victory in their long history. In space stations and colonies, on ships and planets, humanity girded for war. Mothers hugged children, soldiers checked weapons, engineers worked on new designs, scientists looked for weaknesses in alien technology. The Vraxian Empire expected a quick victory. They had conquered hundreds of species before. None had lasted more than a few months against their might. They saw humans as just another primitive species to be crushed. They were wrong. Humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson. You could have better weapons, you could have more ships, you could have ancient pride and thousands of years of victories, but none of that mattered when facing a species that simply refused to lose. The message went out from Earth to every human in the galaxy. It was simple and clear. They think we will break. They think we will surrender. They think we are weak because we are young. Show them what humans really are. Show them that we bow to no one. Show them that declaring war on humanity is the last mistake they will ever make. The war had begun, and the galaxy was watching. The Vraxian task force came out of hyperspace near the planet New Helena. 73 warships moved in perfect formation. Fleet Commander Zarkoth sat in his command chair aboard the huge ship called Inevitable Conquest. He felt confident. His empire had never lost a war. Scans show weak defenses, his officer reported. 3 small platforms. Old missiles. No big ships. 200,000 people live there. Zarkoth clicked his jaws in satisfaction. A typical human colony, soft and undefended. Tell them to surrender. When they refuse, destroy the platforms and bomb their military bases. We will own this planet by tonight. But something strange happened as the fleet moved forward. Commander, the sensor officer said. She sounded confused. The human platforms are shutting down. They are sending a message. On the main screen, a tired-looking woman appeared. Governor Martha Green of New Helena looked exhausted but determined. Vraxian fleet, this is Governor Green. Our defensive platforms are standing down. We are sending coordinates for a meeting. Maybe we can talk and avoid killing. Zarkoth made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. See? They surrender before we even shoot. These humans are weaker than we thought. Prepare landing parties. We will accept their surrender in person. 3 Vraxian troop ships went down to the planet. They carried 2,000 elite soldiers. As they approached the landing zone at an old industrial park, Zarkoth felt pleased. Another easy conquest. The human reputation for being tough seemed like a lie. The ships landed in the empty complex. Soldiers poured out with weapons ready. They scanned for threats. The area was deserted and quiet. No contacts, reported Ground Commander Thexral. No life signs anywhere close. Maybe they ran away and... The explosion turned all 3 carriers into fireballs. Hidden bombs that had been buried weeks ago blew up at the same time. The industrial park became an inferno. The carriers' fuel and weapons exploded too, making a fireball that could be seen from space. What happened? Zarkoth roared. He jumped from his chair. Report, trap, the officer managed to say. The landing zone was rigged with explosives. All 3 carriers destroyed. 2,000 dead. No survivors. Before Zarkoth could respond, the human platforms powered back up. But they did not shoot. Instead, Governor Green appeared on screen again. This time her face was cold as ice. I am sorry, Commander. I lied about talking. But you were going to bomb our cities anyway, right? Here is what happens next. You will leave this system, because if you do not, we have planted bombs in every major building on this planet. You can take this world, but you will get nothing but ruins and ashes. And the galaxy will see that humans do not surrender. We make you pay. You will die for this. Zarkoth's rage made his translator screech. All weapons target their cities. I want... Sir? The sensor officer interrupted. Multiple ships coming. Human fleet inbound. The EDF Defiance and 30 other destroyers dropped out of hyperspace. Admiral Carl Bennett commanded them. They were outgunned and outnumbered, but nobody cared. All ships, Carl broadcast. Remember the plan. Hit and run. Make them chase you. Do not stand and fight. We are not here to win a battle. We are here to make them regret starting a war. The human ships scattered in crazy patterns that confused Vraxian computers. They fired missiles in waves, not at the big dreadnoughts' heavy shields, but at the smaller escort ships, at weapons. At sensors, Kevin Palmer, commanding the Defiance, smiled as his officer called out hits. That is 2 sensor dishes down on that cruiser. Let us see how they like flying blind. Lisa, turn us around for another pass. Sir, they are breaking formation to chase us, Lisa reported. Perfect. Lead them away from the colony. Make them work for it. The battle became chaos as Vraxian discipline broke. Commanders got angry at the sneak attack and the hit-and-run tactics. They broke formation to chase individual human ships. The human vessels led them through an asteroid belt. The smaller human ships weaved through rocks that the big Vraxian ships had to navigate carefully. This is beneath us, Zarkoth raged. They fight without honor like scavengers. They fight to win, his officer said quietly. He watched another escort ship take damage from a missile that came from behind an asteroid. After 4 hours of running battles, the human fleet escaped into hyperspace. They lost only 3 ships while damaging or destroying 15 Vraxian vessels. Not a huge victory, but not a defeat either. Zarkoth stared at the display. His earlier confidence was shaken. Should we pursue them? We do not know where they went, sir. They scattered in 8 different directions. By the time we track them, they could be anywhere. And the colony? Still broadcasting their threat to destroy their own buildings. Analysis says they are not bluffing. For the first time in his long career, Zarkoth faced a choice his empire never had to make. Accept a worthless victory over ruins or retreat. He chose to retreat but sent a message first. This changes nothing, humans. We will return with overwhelming force. Your tricks will not save you. Governor Green replied on every channel in the system. That is fine. We will come up with new tricks. We have lots of them. And every day you waste trying to conquer us is another day we prepare. Welcome to war with humanity, Commander. It is not going to be what you expect. As news of the battle spread across the galaxy, other species started to pay attention. The Vraxian Empire, for the first time in memory, had been bloodied. Not defeated, but forced to retreat by an opponent they had called primitive. In the council chambers, Councillor Thren watched the battle recordings with his large eyes. Fascinating, he said quietly. They do not fight like any species we have seen. No honor codes, no traditional tactics. They fight to win by any means necessary. The Chirathi delegate clicked thoughtfully. Dangerous. Very dangerous. The Vraxians have woken something they do not understand. The Score representative General Cross watched in silence. His species had allied with the Vraxians because it seemed smart. But watching the humans fight, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Uncertainty. The humans had drawn first blood. The question was whether they could keep fighting like this against an empire that would not make the same mistake twice. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Gregory Hayes reviewed the battle reports with his staff. The mood was carefully hopeful. Good start, Linda Hoffman said. But they will adapt. Next time they will not underestimate us. Good, Gregory replied. Because next time we will have new surprises ready. Order all colonies to prepare Protocol Scorched Earth. If we cannot hold a world, the enemy gets nothing useful from it. And start the Black Fleet Project. Susan Wright raised an eyebrow. Sir, that is still experimental. We are at war with an empire that outguns us 5-1. Experimental is all we have. Humanity did not climb to the top on Earth by playing it safe. We are going to show these aliens why we survived when bigger, stronger creatures did not. The war had begun with a human victory, however small, but both sides knew the real battles were yet to come. The Vraxians would return with more ships and more anger. The humans would be waiting with more tricks and more determination. In the depths of space, fleets moved and colonies prepared. The galaxy watched and wondered which side would break first, the ancient empire with its vast power, or the young species with its refusal to surrender. 3 weeks after the defeat at New Helena, the Vraxian Empire gathered the biggest battle fleet in modern history, 500 ships plus their allies. The Score gave 80 heavy cruisers. The Crystal Vextar added carrier groups. The parasitic Kron offered their infiltration troops. Supreme Commander Velkoth stood aboard his massive ship called Dominion Eternal. He was Zarkoth's boss and a veteran of 100 wars. He looked at his fleet with satisfaction. This time there would be no mistakes. No underestimating the enemy. The humans would face the full might of the Empire. Their target was New Pittsburgh. 800,000 humans lived there. It was the center of human manufacturing in the frontier. This ends now, Velkoth declared to his commanders in a hologram meeting. We strike fast and hard. We show the galaxy what happens to species that defy us. No mercy. New Pittsburgh will be an example that even humans can understand. But in the asteroid field around New Pittsburgh, Colonel Danny Wright and his crew of miners waited. Their ships were old ore haulers and excavation vessels. They had mounted weapons on them and filled cargo bays with metals and explosives. Command says the fleet is coming, Danny told his group of 70 civilian ships. 30 minutes out. Everyone remember the plan? Hit them hard and run like hell, replied Captain Nancy Ford from her ship Spirit of 76. We are miners. Danny, we know how to make things explode. When the Vraxian fleet appeared in space in perfect formation, they immediately saw the civilian ships running away from New Pittsburgh. Fleeing civilians, Velkoth's officer reported. Mining vessels mostly. No threat. Destroy them anyway, Velkoth ordered. Let none escape. It was exactly what Danny hoped for. All ships now. The fleeing mining ships suddenly turned around and burned hard toward the Vraxian formation. Their cargo bays opened, releasing clouds of metal ore dust that confused radar. In the confusion, each ship fired every missile they had. Hundreds of warheads streaked toward the tightly packed enemy fleet. Evasive action, Velkoth roared, but the formation was too tight and too perfect. Ships hit each other trying to move. Defense systems, blinded by the metal dust, fired randomly. Missiles found their targets. The mining ships did not stay to watch. They scattered. Most escaped into hyperspace before the Vraxians could recover. Danny's ship took a hit that killed his navigator, but they got out. Behind them, 12 Vraxian ships were heavily damaged and 3 were destroyed. Not a huge loss from 500 ships, but it broke their perfect formation and their confidence. Civilians, Velkoth hissed. They armed their civilians. Sir, the planet is launching defensive platforms, his officer reported. Hundreds of them. They are just cargo containers with engines and explosives. Space around New Pittsburgh filled with what the defenders called greeting cards. Simple cargo containers with basic engines and crude guidance. They were not smart, but there were thousands of them and each one could destroy a ship if it hit. The Vraxian fleet moved forward. Defense systems worked overtime to clear a path. They succeeded, but it took time and used up their ammunition. Finally, Velkoth said as his fleet reached orbit, begin bombardment of military installations. Show these primitives the price of resistance. The big guns of 36 dreadnoughts opened fire. Military bases, spaceports, and defenses vanished under the attack. On the ground, General Karen Foster got civilians into deep underground shelters while her Marines prepared for ground combat. All units, Karen sent out. Remember your training. The Vraxians are about to learn what city fighting means. Enemy landing ships came down on the ruins of the main spaceport. 20,000 Vraxian shock troops in power armor deployed with practiced efficiency. They moved into the city expecting scattered resistance. What they got was hell. Every building was a fortress. Every window a sniper position. Every street a kill zone. The human defenders had studied every city battle in their history and learned the lessons well. Squad leader Genkor led his unit down a main street. He scanned for targets. The street was eerily quiet with debris everywhere. His suit sensors showed no life signs, but something felt wrong. The building to his left exploded outward. A stolen construction vehicle crashed through the wall, crushing 3 of his soldiers. Before they could react, gunfire came from a dozen positions. Contact! All sides. Genkor's communication was cut short as a bullet punched through his suit's neck. Across the city, similar attacks happened. The humans refused to hold ground. They would strike and disappear, using their knowledge of the terrain to vanish into underground tunnels and sewers. The Vraxians found themselves fighting an enemy they could barely see. Lieutenant Angela Martinez led her squad through service tunnels under the city. They came up behind enemy lines. Plant the charges. We have 5 minutes before they know we are here. Her explosives expert, Corporal Tim Hughes, rigged the Vraxian supply depot with enough explosives to level a city block. They were clear in 4 minutes. The explosion destroyed enough ammunition to supply a battalion. From orbit, Velkoth watched his ground forces struggle with growing frustration. Status? 70% casualties in the first wave, his ground commander reported. His voice was strained. The humans are using unconventional tactics. They do not fight like any species we have seen. I request permission to use heavy weapons in populated areas. Denied. We need this planet's infrastructure intact. Then we need more troops, sir. Many more. Velkoth sent his reserves, another 15,000 soldiers. They joined the grinder below. Meanwhile, above the planet, the real trap was being set. Admiral Paul Richardson and the Fifth Fleet came out of hyperspace. His 50 ships did not attack. They broadcast on all frequencies. Vraxian Fleet, this is Admiral Richardson. You are not leaving this system with those ships. We have mined every hyperspace exit point within 3 light hours. You want to retreat? You will have to clear a path. That will take you 2 weeks, maybe 3, and we will be hitting you the whole time. Or you can try to take the planet. Keep feeding troops into the grinder. Either way, you are bleeding. Welcome to human space, Commander. We hope you enjoy your stay. The message was psychological warfare. The mines existed, but not in the numbers he claimed. But the Vraxians did not know that. Velkoth faced an impossible choice. His ground forces were stuck in brutal city combat. His fleet was trapped, or thought it was. Every hour cost him ships, soldiers, and reputation. After 6 days of grinding combat, having lost 43 ships to hit and run attacks and over 12,000 soldiers in the ruins of New Pittsburgh, Velkoth made the call. All forces withdraw to orbit. Prepare to clear exit points and retreat. It took them 11 days to get their ground forces out and clear safe hyperspace routes. 11 days of constant attacks from human forces. When they finally escaped, they left behind 18 more ships and the graves of 3,000 soldiers they could not recover. New Pittsburgh was a ruin. Its buildings were shattered. 30,000 civilians were dead, but it remained in human hands. Governor Paul Stevens broadcast from a bunker under the rubble. We are still here. Bloodied but not broken. They wanted to make an example of us. I think we made an example of them instead. Humanity does not break. We bend, we adapt, and we come back stronger. That is the message the Vraxians need to learn. Across the galaxy, species that had been watching the war started to rethink things. The Vraxian Empire, dominant power for thousands of years, had retreated from a single human world. Not defeated, but forced to withdraw by an opponent that refused to fight by normal rules. In the council chambers, even the pro-Vraxian delegates fell quiet as the casualty reports came in. Councillor Thren spoke what many were thinking. They fight with no honor, no rules of war, no respect for normal tactics. They are terrifying, the Chirathi delegate corrected him. No, they fight with the only honor that matters, protecting their own by any means necessary. The Vraxians wanted a war.
They are getting one.
The question is whether they understand what they started. On Earth, Gregory Hayes studied the reports with mixed feelings.
Casualties?
33,000 military, 30,000 civilian, Linda reported quietly. New Pittsburgh will take decades to rebuild. And the enemy? 18,000 confirmed kills, 61 ships destroyed or badly damaged. They are hurting, but they are not beaten. Gregory nodded slowly. Then we keep hitting them. Keep making every advance cost them blood and ships. Eventually, they will realize this war is not worth the price. Peter Kane looked worried. And if they do not? If they throw everything they have at us? Then we make sure that when we go down, we take them with us, Gregory replied grimly. But I do not think it will come to that. Humanity's greatest weapon is not our ships or our guns. It is our refusal to quit. They will break before we do. The war continued, and the galaxy watched as the upstart humans refused to fall. The war entered its 4th month with no clear winner. The Vraxian Empire had more numbers and firepower, but every advance cost them badly. Humanity had stubbornness and creativity, but they were running out of resources and planets to defend. In a secure bunker on Mars, the smartest minds humanity could find worked frantically on what they called Project Checkmate. Leading the team was Dr. Frank Coleman, a physicist who had won 3 Nobel Prizes before the war. Working with him was Dr. Lisa Cheng, a computer scientist who pioneered human AI research. Show me what you have, Fleet Admiral Gregory Hayes demanded. He visited the facility personally. Frank pulled up holographic displays showing complex math. We have been studying Vraxian hyperspace technology. It is more advanced than ours, yes, but it has a weakness. Their ships all sync to a central navigation beacon to coordinate fleet movements. If we could access that beacon, we could feed them false data, Lisa continued. Her eyes were bright with exhaustion and excitement. Make their entire fleet jump to wrong coordinates. Scatter them across the galaxy or drop them into stars. Gregory leaned forward. What do you need? Access to a Vraxian command ship's computer core intact, which means we need to capture one. That is impossible. Gregory started to say, then stopped. In this war, humanity had redefined impossible several times. How intact? The main computer core and communication array. We do not need the whole ship, just those parts. Gregory pulled up his communicator. Get me Admiral Bennett. We are going hunting. 3 weeks later, Captain Nicole Harper commanded the stealth frigate EDF Ghost through a debris field from a recent battle. Her ship was coated in radar-absorbing materials and running on minimal power. It drifted like a piece of wreckage. Vraxian patrol cruiser approaching. Her sensor officer, Lieutenant Brad Cooper, whispered, as if the enemy could hear them. She is damaged. Escorts are dead. Looks like she is trying to reach the jump point for repairs. Perfect, Nicole breathed. Boarding teams prepare for assault. We get one shot at this. The Ghost drifted closer, camouflaged among the debris. When they were alongside the Vraxian cruiser, magnetic clamps engaged and cutting torches began opening a hull breach. 30 Marines in powered armor poured through, led by Captain Steve Barnes. The fight was brutal and close. Vraxian soldiers had the advantage of fighting on their own ship, but the humans had surprise and desperation. After 40 minutes of corridor fighting, Steve's voice crackled over the comm. Bridge secured, computer core intact. Lisa, you are up. Dr. Chang, wearing a combat suit and looking terrified, scrambled through the breach with her team of technicians. They worked frantically as sporadic fighting continued throughout the ship. Got it, Lisa shouted after 20 agonizing minutes. Disconnecting the core now. We need to get out, this ship's reactor is failing. The retreat was even more chaotic than the assault. They lost 8 Marines, but they got out with the computer core and Lisa's team intact. The Vraxian cruiser exploded 2 minutes after the Ghost detached. Back on Mars, Lisa and her team worked around the clock to crack the Vraxian encryption. It took 3 weeks of sleepless nights and countless failures. We are in, she finally announced to Gregory and the assembled command staff. We have access to their navigation network. We can feed false coordinates to any ship connected to the central beacon. How many ships? Asked Linda Hoffman. All of them, Frank replied with a tired grin. Every Vraxian military vessel in the galaxy uses the same system. We could scatter their entire fleet. Gregory considered the implications. No, too obvious. They would figure it out and fix it. We need to be subtle. What if we just introduce small errors? Navigation drift that adds up over multiple jumps? Lisa nodded slowly. Make them end up slightly off target every time they jump. It would seem like equipment problems rather than sabotage. They would waste weeks checking their drives, never realizing the problem is not their ships. Do it, Gregory ordered. And prepare a backup plan. If they discover the sabotage, I want the option to scatter their fleet on my command. While Project Checkmate was being set up, the war on the ground continued with increased desperation on both sides. The Vraxian Empire, frustrated by their inability to win quickly, began recruiting more allies. The parasitic Kron, who reproduced by putting their young inside host species, offered their services. General Cross of the Score, despite growing doubts, remained committed to the alliance. On the human colony of New Seattle, Governor Eric Stone received terrifying intelligence. Sir, we are detecting unusual readings from the Vraxian ground forces. Biological agents. The Kron are deploying parasites. Within hours, the nightmare began. Kron infiltrators looking identical to humans moved through the population. Those infected did not know for days until the young matured and took control. Dr. Michelle Price, head of New Seattle's medical research, worked desperately to find a detection method. The parasites hide in the nervous system. Standard scans do not show them. We need something new. Her team worked for 72 hours straight before discovering that the parasites had a unique electromagnetic signature. They quickly developed portable scanners, but not before hundreds had been infected. The decision facing Governor Stone was horrible. We can identify them, but we cannot cure them. Once infected, the host dies when we remove the parasite. Then we quarantine the infected, Eric decided, his voice hollow. Humanely. With dignity. But we cannot let the parasite spread. The infected, knowing they were doomed, volunteered for one final mission. Led by Colonel Janet Lee, 200 infected soldiers launched a suicide attack on the Kron Deployment Center. They succeeded in destroying the facility and contaminating the Kron's entire parasitic egg supply with human bioweapons. If we are going down, Janet sent before the attack, we are taking them with us, for humanity. The sacrifice of New Seattle's infected became a rallying cry across human space. but it also showed the war's growing brutality. On Earth, Gregory faced uncomfortable questions from the civilian government. President Andrew Miller, elected just before the war began, met with the military command. "Admiral, I'm getting reports of chemical weapons use, scorched earth tactics, civilian casualties in the tens of thousands. How far are we willing to go to win this war?" Gregory met his gaze steadily. "As far as necessary, sir. The Vraxians are not offering surrender terms. They are offering extinction. Every world they take, they remove all human presence. This is not a war for territory. It is a war for survival. But at what cost to our humanity? Sir, with respect, we can debate philosophy after we ensure there are still humans around to have the debate. The enemy is using parasites that turn our people into hosts. They are bombing civilian populations. They have made it clear this is a war of total destruction. We fight with everything we have or we die. Those are the only choices." Andrew was silent for a long moment. "Then I want the galaxy to see what they have driven us to. I want the Council to understand that we did not choose this brutality. It was forced on us. I will make sure they know, sir." As the 5th month of war began, the Vraxian fleet started having navigation issues. Ships arrived hours late to meeting points. Coordinated attacks fell apart when half the fleet appeared in the wrong location. Commanders blamed equipment failure and spent weeks running checks. Admiral Velkoth, now commanding the overall war effort, grew increasingly frustrated. "We have the superior force. How are we not winning?" His intelligence officer, one of the few willing to speak truth, replied carefully, "Sir, we are fighting a species that does not acknowledge the concept of military defeat. They lose battles and call them tactical withdrawals. They lose worlds and call them successful delays. Their civilians fight like soldiers. Their soldiers fight like fanatics. And every time we think we understand their tactics, they change them. Then we need to change our approach," Velkoth decided. "Target their homeworld, Earth. Cut off the head and the body dies." But Earth was not undefended. The Black Fleet, humanity's experimental weapons program, waited in the outer solar system. 100 ships built with every unconventional weapon humanity could devise. Kinetic kill missiles that were just rocks accelerated to near light speed. Swarms of autonomous attack drones. Experimental energy weapons that would make their operators sick from radiation, but could punch through Vraxian shields. Commander Julie Bennett commanded the experimental carrier EDF Hornet's Nest, home to 3,000 autonomous combat drones. When word came that a Vraxian fleet was approaching Earth, she smiled grimly. "They want Earth? They are going to have to go through hell to get it. All squadrons prepare for launch. Let us show them what human creativity looks like when we stop playing by the rules." The defense of Earth would be humanity's finest hour or its final stand. Either way, the Vraxians were about to learn why you do not provoke a species that evolved by climbing to the top of a food chain filled with creatures bigger and stronger than they were. Humans did not win by being the strongest. They won by being the most adaptable, the most creative, and the most unwilling to admit defeat. The Vraxian armada that approached Earth numbered over 800 ships. It was the largest fleet ever assembled. Supreme Commander Velkoth stood aboard the Dominion Eternal, confident that this final assault would break humanity's will. He had the human homeworld in his sights. "They will see their birth world threatened and they will finally surrender," Velkoth declared to his officers. "No species can watch their home burn and keep fighting." His intelligence officer, who had been studying humans for months, said quietly, "Sir, with respect, I believe that is wrong. Threaten a human colony and they will fight hard. Threaten their homeworld and they will fight with everything they have." Velkoth dismissed the concern. "Then we will destroy everything they have." As the Vraxian fleet crossed into the solar system, they detected the defensive forces. The Black Fleet positioned near Jupiter. Regular fleet elements spread throughout the system. Thousands of defensive platforms orbiting Earth itself. "Pathetic," Velkoth scoffed. "We outnumber them nearly 10 to 1. All ships advance, sweep aside their defenses and establish bombardment positions around Earth." What happened next would be studied by military historians for generations. Commander Julie Bennett launched her drone. Swarms when the Vraxian fleet passed Jupiter. 3,000 autonomous attack drones, each no larger than a fighter, spread out in a cloud pattern that confused enemy sensors. They did not attack the big ships. They targeted sensors, communications, and weapon turrets. "Swarm tactics," Julie explained to her crew as they watched the chaos. "Bees do not kill bears by biting harder. They overwhelm them with numbers and persistence." The Vraxian defense systems could not track the huge number of tiny, fast-moving targets. The drones were not individually dangerous, but thousands of them. Each taking out small but critical systems began to add up. Meanwhile, the experimental weapon that Dr. Frank Coleman had been developing launched its first test. The kinetic kill missiles, simple asteroids with attached engines, accelerated to a large fraction of light speed. When they hit Vraxian shields at those velocities, the physics became interesting. Enemy dreadnought shields failing, reported Julie's tactical officer, Lieutenant Gary Mitchell. The kinetic impact is generating more energy than their shields can handle. Keep firing, Julie ordered. Focus on their command ships. In the outer system, Captain Kevin Palmer commanded a squadron of destroyers in hit-and-run attacks. His ship, the Defiance, had survived every major battle of the war through skill and luck. Sir, enemy cruiser breaking formation to pursue, Lisa Yang reported. Good. Lead them to Point Delta. Kevin smiled coldly. Point Delta was an asteroid field they had rigged with remote nuclear mines weeks ago. The pursuing cruiser followed them into the field. Kevin's ship weaved through the asteroids with practiced ease while the larger Vraxian vessel struggled. When they were deep in the field, Kevin gave the order. Detonate. The nuclear explosions turned asteroids into deadly debris clouds. The Vraxian cruiser's shields held against the initial blast but failed under the sustained impact of thousands of rock fragments. The ship broke apart, one down, Kevin reported, regrouping for another pass. On Earth, President Andrew Miller addressed the population from a bunker deep under the Rocky Mountains. My fellow humans, the enemy is at our door. They believe we will surrender to save our home world. They do not understand that Earth is not just our home. It is our symbol. It represents everything we have achieved, everything we have survived, every challenge we have overcome. We did not crawl out of caves and conquer a planet full of predators, just to surrender to the first aliens who decided we were inconvenient. Today we show the galaxy what humanity truly is. We are Earth's children and we do not go quietly. The battle raged for 3 days. The Vraxian fleet advanced, taking casualties at every step, but their huge numbers pushed them forward. By the 3rd day, they achieved orbit around Earth. Velkoth, aboard a ship that had lost half its weapons and most of its sensors to drone attacks, prepared to give the bombardment order. Target their military installations. Show them the price of defiance. Before he could give the command, Dr. Lisa Chang activated the backup protocol from Project Checkmate. Every Vraxian ship in the galaxy simultaneously received corrupted navigation data. Their hyperspace drives, trying to sync with what they thought was the central beacon, instead received coordinates that scattered them across the galaxy. Ships in the Earth fleet suddenly found themselves in random locations, light years apart. Velkoth's flagship was thrown into an uncharted region of space completely alone. What happened? Velkoth roared. Where is my fleet? Unknown, sir, his navigation officer replied in panic. The beacon must have been compromised. We are receiving recall signals, but they are all giving different coordinates. Across the galaxy, 800 Vraxian ships found themselves isolated, confused, and vulnerable. Human forces, coordinating through more primitive but reliable communication systems, regrouped and began hunting the scattered enemy vessels. Admiral Carl Bennett, commanding the pursuit forces, broadcast a message on all channels. Vraxian forces, this is Admiral Bennett. Your central command structure has been disrupted. Your fleet is scattered. You are alone. We are offering one chance to surrender. Take it or face destruction ship by ship. Many did surrender. Some fought on and were destroyed. A few managed to regroup and escape to Vraxian space. Velkoth, stranded and powerless, had no choice but to listen to his communications officer relay the news. Sir, we are receiving reports from across the fleet. 70% of our ships are either destroyed, captured, or have surrendered. The Earth assault force is gone. The war, sir, I think we have lost. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency sessions debated the shocking turn of events. The Vraxian Empire, dominant power for thousands of years, had been defeated by a species that had been in space for only 2 centuries. Councillor Thren addressed the assembly. We have witnessed something unprecedented. A species that fights not with superior technology or numbers, but with adaptability and determination. The Vraxians sought to make an example of humanity. Instead, humanity has made an example of them. General Cross of the Score stood to speak. I fought alongside the Vraxians. I watched humans turn mining equipment into weapons, civilians into soldiers and defeat into tactical victories. They do not fight like any species we know because they do not think like any species we know. They see rules as suggestions and impossible as just a challenge. The Vraxians made one critical error. They assumed humanity would fight by our standards. Humans do not care about our standards. They care about winning. The Vraxian Empire, facing the complete collapse of their military might and growing internal problems, sent an envoy to Earth to discuss terms. The negotiations took place aboard a neutral station, with representatives from the Galactic Council as witnesses. Helen Carter, Earth's chief diplomat who had warned the Vraxians at the beginning, led the human delegation. Across from her sat Envoy Dren Koth, a Vraxian elder who had opposed the war from the start. "You have our surrender," Dren Koth said simply. "State your terms." Helen, who had prepared for this moment but never really believed it would come, took a deep breath. First, immediate end to all fighting. Second, payment for the colonies you destroyed and the civilians you killed. Third, recognition of human control over all currently held systems. Fourth, and this is not negotiable, you will help us rebuild what you destroyed. You are not demanding territory, tribute, subjugation? Drenkoth seemed genuinely surprised. "We are not you," Helen replied. "We did not want this war. We just wanted to live in peace. You forced us to fight and we did what we had to do. But we are not conquerors. We will take what is fair and reasonable, and then we would prefer to never speak to you again unless necessary." The treaty was signed within a week. The Vraxian Empire, reduced to a shadow of its former power, withdrew from the frontier sectors. Their allies, the Score, the Vextar, and the surviving Kron, quickly distanced themselves from the conflict. The war had lasted 6 months. Human casualties numbered over 200,000 military and 150,000 civilian. 17 colonies had been damaged or destroyed, but humanity had survived and, against all odds, won. On Earth in the aftermath, Gregory Hayes stood with his command staff looking at the numbers. "We lost a quarter of our fleet," Susan Wright reported. "Rebuilding will take years. But we are still here," Linda Hoffman added. "And the galaxy knows now. Humans can be defeated in battle, but we cannot be conquered. We adapt too fast, fight too dirty, and refuse to quit." President Andrew Miller joined them, looking decades older than when the war began. "What did we learn from all this, Admiral?" Gregory thought carefully before answering. "We learned that we are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the smartest or the most advanced, but we might be the most stubborn, the most creative, and the most dangerous when threatened. We learned that humans do not need to be the best at everything. We just need to be better at refusing to lose. And them?" Andrew pointed toward the Vraxian Empire's territory on the star map. "What did they learn?" "They learned why you do not declare war on humans," Gregory replied with a grim smile. "Because we will not fight the way you expect.